This is one of a series of videos produced by the Further Mathematics Support Programme for exam revision. In this particular video we're looking at the AQA specification for D2, and the question comes from the January 2010 paper. It's question number 5. We're told in the question that a landscape gardener has 3 projects to complete over a period of 4 months, May through to August. One of these months is going to be taken as a holiday. So there's various things that are going to affect the costs, but we're given the costs in this table in thousands of pounds. So by completing the table of values, it says in figure 3 or otherwise, we're going to use dynamic programming, working backwards from August to schedule, and then find the schedule to minimize the total cost of the project. So it's a standard sort of dynamic programming question working from this particular table. We're just taking a little bit of time first of all to study what information has already been added to the table. You can see that in August then we could either have actually completed all of the tasks A, B and C, so there's nothing left to do in August, or alternatively we've done 2 of the tasks, so A, B, A, C or B, C. And from our table the costs for those come in from looking at the cost of doing each particular job. So if we've completed all 3, then obviously the cost is going to be 0. But if we've completed A and B, we have to now do C, and from the table in August C costs 14. So the 14 there has come from that particular point. Likewise, if we're going to do B or A, the values are coming from our table here, 16, 10 and 14. Going on then, the first 2 parts of July have been completed. So in July, either we've already done 2 of the 3, A, B, A, C or B, C, so the 3 possible pairs. And if we've done A and B, so taking this top row, we do have the choice of either doing nothing in July or completing C. Now let's take where have these numbers come from, so we can understand what's going on. The action there is 0, so we're actually doing nothing, which is that 0 there. And if we do nothing, we must therefore go to the fact that we've got A and B completed here, which gives us the 14. So the 14 is coming from this part of the table. Try and think of it as coming from there and not from the table of the projects at the top, because later on that will help. The second row then is done from the 15. That's the cost of doing C. So we're looking at July now. The cost of doing C is 15, and if we have done C, then we go to needing to do nothing in August, and therefore we're adding 0. Right, so let's look at what happens then. So if we've done A and C, before we go on, let's look at that. We've completed that part there, and so we want to look at the smallest cost there, which is 14. That will come in handy when we go on to the next stage of looking at June. So if we now go on to what happens with A and C having been completed, well, if A and C is completed, we can either do nothing, in which case we must do B in this month, so we're going to add on to that in the following month rather. We do B, and we can see from the table there that that is a value of 10. So we've got 0 plus 10 here. If we do B, that's going to be 12, but then we can do nothing, or we need to do nothing in the following month, so 0. And that gives us values here of 10 and 12. So again, we want to indicate on here the smallest of those two values and just indicate the position that we've got to there. Continuing that sort of fashion, then this will be 0 and followed by doing A in the following month, so we can see that that is 16. Or if we do A in this month from our table, it's 18, and then we would do nothing the following month. So we've now got 16 and 18 here. And again, the smallest one of those is equal to that 16 there. Now looking at what happens if we've only done one. Now if we've only done one of the projects before July, we've got 2 to do. So we're going to have to do one this month. So if A has been done, we must either do B or C here. So if we do B in this particular month from our table, we can see that that's 12. And then we must follow that up by doing C in the following month, and so the 14 coming from this point up here. So really looking at 2 different parts here, 12 and 14, giving us the 26. In a similar fashion then, we then have 15 for doing C, and if we do C, A and C, we must follow that up with B, which is 10, and that's coming from the table above. And then finally the 16 I've just indicated there would be comes into the next element. So we have 18 for doing A in July, and then we must follow that up with C, which is 14, 15 and 16. So I'm just going to go through and complete this now. 18 and 10, 12 and 16. So those totals then giving us 26 and 25. The smaller of those two is the 25. And then 32 and 31, the smaller of those two there is the 31, and both of these are equal to 28. So moving on to a new slide, this sorry, beg your pardon, that's our new slide. That's the point that we've got to, and we now need to go on to June. Well, if we look at the columns now, one at a time, the state that we're at in June, we either have completed A or B or C, or actually 0 at this point as well. So those are the possible states when we've completed one task or no tasks at that point. If we've completed A, we can either do nothing, B or C, and for B it would therefore be either do nothing, A or C, and if we've done C, we can do nothing, A or B, and then finally, so I've got that line in the wrong place, or the 0 in the wrong place. If we've done 0 at that point, we must do A, B or C. Now perhaps the easiest way of doing this now is to look at our table of costs for June and write in those first of all. So these are the costs of our actions in June. So they are 16, 13 and 17 respectively, or of obviously nothing. So there we have 0, 13 and 17. So I'm going to write in all of these actions. A is 16, C is 17, 0, A 16, B is 13, and then A, B and C 16, 13 and 17. So those are just coming from this table up here, the table of actual costs of the products. project, sorry. Now, we then got to get the number that we're adding onto there from this part of the table, July's part of the table. So if we do in state A and we do nothing, then we are now looking at this part of the table here. And we can see from that that our value is, smallest value there is 25. If we are looking at state A and we do B, then we have got to AB, which is the top part of the table. And our smallest value there is 14. If we're in state A and we do action C, we then got to go to AC, which is here, and our smallest value is indicated on the table there as being equal to 10. So 17 plus 10. Now what I suggest you do at this point, if you're watching the video, is you pause and you try the rest of the table yourself and then come back to it. I'm going to continue doing the same thing and you can see whether you agree with my answers. Okay, I'll just do the last few again, just explaining where these numbers are coming from. So we've put in our costs of the action in June. So if we've done nothing prior to that, then we're going to go to the states A, B and C in July. So looking at the numbers here, which are indicated the smallest ones, the smallest one when we get to state A is 25, so we're adding on to that 25, and then 31 if we end up at state B, and if we end up at C, then 28. Now we need to go through and work out these totals: 25, 27, 27, and the smallest of those is 25, so that'll be important in a second. 31, 30, 33, smallest 30, 28, 26 and 29, so the smallest one there 29, and finally 41, sorry, beg your pardon, 41, 44 and 45, and the smallest 41. Right, we're nearly finished now. We need to look at the so that's where we're at the moment, and now we've got to work back one further month. So in May we have obviously our this is our starting month, so the state we have in May must be state 0. So we can either do nothing in May, it is possible that we do nothing, or we do A, B and C. And from the table of values, then those, if you look back at that, the values for May are 17, 14 and 14. So these costs of doing these, A is 17, 14 and 14. And of course if we do nothing, then the cost of doing that is 0. Right, so the points that we go to are fairly obvious. If we do nothing, we end up here in state 0, so we're going to add on to that the smallest value, which is 41. If we do A, we're going to end up at the top there in state A, so the smallest of that is 25. And then state B, the smallest is 30, and state C, the smallest is 26. So we're looking at these numbers here, the 25, the 30, the 26 and the 41. And these give us then totals of 41, 42, 44 and 40. So the smallest one here is given by that one there, DC, which is 40. Right, so there we are, the table in all its glory. Now we need to interpret what's going on, so looking at what happens. Well, we follow through here from the smallest values that we have. So we're going to start off in May by doing the project C, which means that in June we end up in state C, and if we look at that, the next one there is to do the A. So in June we do A, which means that in July we must end up in state A and C, which is here. And the smallest of those is this one here, which is to do nothing. So July ends up being the holiday. And finally then we end up in AC here in August, and therefore we must do B in August. There we are, the task completed. To give the exact marking, this is actually quite difficult because it is quite a complex mark scheme, but in essence it really depends on your accuracy in doing this. But roughly speaking, there are 3 marks for each of these stages, and then a mark at the end for interpreting. Sorry, beg your pardon. It's 2 marks at the end for each of those 2 stages. So it really depends on the complete accuracy of that. But in total, 10 marks allocated to that question. That's the end of this particular question, and you can find solutions to others at www.furthermaths.org.uk.